Shut it, Tom.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Enjoy the Walk podcast. Thanks for joining us again. As always, your host Dalton here with my good friends Isaiah and Dante. Guys, how are we doing again this week?
Hanging in there. How about you? Doing well?
Yeah, can't complain. I'm pretty excited about this guest we have this week, a Callaway pro fitter, as you would call him. He's been around the block a time or two in the club fitting industry, and we're really excited to rack his brain about how he got there and the do's and don'ts of your everyday club fitting. So without further ado, Andrew, thanks for joining us today. How are you, man?
Gentlemen, thanks for having me, man. Love the show. First time listener, long time listener, first time caller type deal. So yeah. Love the show. Love what you guys are doing, man. Love listening to it every week. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I purposely left out your last name because I'm going to be honest with you.
Terrible.
I would have butchered it. So introduce yourself, full name, so I don't butcher it.
Yeah, so I'm Andrew Mylnarski. Yeah, it's a tough Polish name there. Not easy.
Dante, we could tell him a thing or two about some Polacks up in the Scranton area, right?
Oh, yeah. Good old
so normal
Paul.
Out there.
I'll give him a shout out after listening. Paul and Stan, miss you guys. How you guys doing? Stan, congrats on the engagement. Can't wait to celebrate, bud.
Oh,
nice.
Man. Gotta love it. Well, yeah, awesome. Thanks again for joining us, Andrew. We're super happy to have you. So give us a little background on yourself first. Where were you born and raised, and how did you first get into the game of golf?
Yeah, man. So I'm from St. Michael's, Maryland, which is known for almost nothing except where Wedding Crashers was filmed. Little known fact. So grew up on the second hole of the golf course, which was huge. Yeah. So right in my backyard, the range was 100 yards from me. My dad, John, has been the pro at this course. It used to be called Harbortown. Pete Dye designed it before he did the Harbortown in South Carolina. But my father's been the head pro there for 34 years now. So pretty interesting upbringing where, grew up 100 yards from the range, tee boxes in the backyard. Like we didn't drive cars. We just had golf carts that were always like parked at the house, which was like unbelievable. So short game area, like anything that you could want golf wise as a kid, it was just, like you're 6 years old and just grab a cart and just go do as you please. Cause it's this small little neighborhood. You can't really get into many problems. So, so born and raised there. Then I played a little bit of golf growing up, was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go play at Ohio University, which is in Athens, Ohio. Played some decent golf there, did some internships, kind of bounced around the industry in college. And then once I finally graduated, I took one job and went to San Diego to work at Callaway's headquarters. Was there for about 2 years, and then a job opened up back in Maryland. So currently living in Annapolis. Pretty much anything Callaway that is in the state of Maryland is mine. So if it's on a shelf somewhere, I probably had some sort of part in it.
That's awesome. That's getting into it as quick as you did as a kid seems to be a crucial factor into anyone that I talk to in the industry. If they've been around it for, their life, and as soon as you can get a club in your hand, the better it seems like. When was the first time that you kind of caught that bug and realized like, man, golf's something I want to do with more than just with my buddies?
Oh man. That's, really, really young, but there's something about coming off the green on 18 when you're just fired up. You just shot 89. You're like, I'm never playing this game ever again. I just shot 87 the other day. I was like, why do I do this? Why do I set myself up faster? I kid you not, I'm a scratch golfer. And the last time I played, 4 handicap, shakes my hand as we walk off 11 green and said, thanks for coming. I'm just like, geez, man, what happened out there? You don't want to be shaking any hands on 11 green.
Oh, that's like the Stephen Ames treatment. That's just not nice.
Terrible. It was terrible.
I know Dante spoke to us a little bit about that, and I did as well, man. It seems like in the Northeast, if you don't pick up the clubs because of weather or what it may be, winter is just a brutal time to be any kind of low-digit handicap because you never feel like it.
No, you don't.
I was texting Dalton the other day because I played on New Year's Day. It's a little cooler, but I managed. same thing. You know, I'm sitting at a 5 handicap. I go out and shoot 90 plus. I don't even know. We're just playing a game. I was like, I'm out of here. I was texting him. I was like, this game stinks. I quit. But yeah, it's tough, man. It's like you just gotta try and get a club in your hand as much as possible. So I feel you on that one.
It was one of those things where I lost 1, I pressed, I lost 2, I pressed, I lost 3, I pressed, I lost 4, I pressed, and it was like, didn't matter. I could have kept going, and I was just losing everything. Brutal. Yeah, that's golf, though. That's why we love it.
And speaking of getting a club in your hand, was it who was it that put a club in your hand first? Would you say it was your dad? And do you have any brothers or sisters or family members that play?
So I had my father kind of taught us. It's me and my brother. So my brother's 3 years older than I am. Taught us everything we know. Never really pushed us to the game. It was just kind of came naturally. There was no pressure. So we were still playing, the normal soccer, basketball, tennis type sports, but there was obviously one that my brother and I were much better at. But it just helps, like, good for the guys that don't have. We had all those resources, and we were so lucky to have a range where you didn't have to go pay $10 for every bucket of balls you wanted to hit. It was there. Transportation. I always feel bad for the kid that's got to get dropped off at 8 a.m. in the summertime, and the parent comes and has to pick them up at 5 p.m. Like, it was just, we had every resource there to thrive. So we got pretty lucky there. And then also having an older brother that, that could push you, even if you're 10 years old, you still want to compete with him when he's 13. So it makes you quite a bit better. So I got pretty lucky in a bunch of aspects,
Now you said your brother was also an advocate of golf and was pretty diehard as well. I did see that he also went to Ohio University. So did that make your choice? Did that make your choice of colleges, like coming out of high school, a little easier, or were there any close seconds as far as where you were going to go to college?
No, because it was the perfect age where when I was like a sophomore in high school, I was taking trips to visit him when he's like a freshman in college. Mm-hmm. So then you start to get to know the teammates, and you start to travel with them. You get to go to tournaments, and it was definitely something as like a sophomore in high school where I'm like, well, this is the school I want to go to, and I got pretty lucky to be able to join their team. We played 1 year of sports together in high school, and then it was pretty cool to we got 1 year together where he was my captain when I was a freshman in college. Was pretty wild. There was one time we had, it's qualifying. You've got 11 guys on a team, but only 5 of you can go play in a particular match. And we tied for the 5th spot in that qualifier. So it was just such a weird moment where our coach sent us out 18 holes just to go battle against your older brother. And it's just like, it's a win-win situation. If you play good and you get to go, it's great. But if not, who else would you rather send besides your brother to go play?
Right. And what better way to settle it than just a backyard brotherly brawl,
Just go out for it. It was awesome. It was just 18 holes of just, heated battle where you want to see that guy make a putt because, you want the best guy to go.
Yeah. When I heard that, I thought that was pretty special because my brother played lacrosse as well that I was the older one, and he got more in the music in the college and kind of that fell off. But he went to a school out in Ohio, Wittenberg, and I always kind of hoped that one day maybe we could cross paths and play each other. So how cool. I thought that hearing that from your perspective was pretty awesome. Now, did you guys feed off each other, compete when you guys were practicing? How'd that work? Did that kind of
Yeah, it's great because there's so many times. You guys spend hours on the golf course. So just to have somebody that you were always trying to play against. And I got lucky because he was a couple years above me. So I was always the one that was kind of shooting to be on his level. And he was good from an early age. He played in the USAM. I got to caddy for him. So it was cool to just see him grow. And I kind of got to piggyback on that. College golf rankings are pretty interesting where it's who you've beaten. So you may tee off and there's 100 guys in that field and they each have their rank. And if you beat, all 100 guys, your record is 100-0, right? So you're perfect. So he goes out as a freshman and wins his first tournament ever. And the guy he was 9th in the country after winning. And this guy, he's good, but he's not 9th in the country. Ricky Fowler was 11th at the time. So I remember seeing Ricky Fowler as 11th in the country. I'm like, this Ricky Fowler would eat this guy's lunch.
That's on a frame in your house,
it
right?
Was so obviously that's in a frame because it's like, oh, remember when he was top 10 in the country for 3 days before like everything else caught up to him? So yeah, that was pretty cool. But it was nice to have someone to kind of look up to, because that was who you tried to compete with, you know? So it was interesting to get to college where it's like, oh, now we're on the same level.
That's pretty sick.
Now going back to that brotherly duel, I have to ask you, who beat who?
He was better than I was in college, but for some reason I smoked him that day. But then joke was on me. So we were qualifying to play at Ohio State's tournament that week. So he came up and watched me, and it rained all 3 rounds. You know, one of those things where like, you know, your average score for Division I in a certain tournament is probably like 75. And we had guys, everyone was shooting in the 90s. And he's just kind of like watching me underneath his umbrella, like having his cup of coffee, just kind of laughing at me as I'm grinding out there. So I think he actually won that battle.
Like if there was one he had to give up in the entirety of his career, that was the one to just –
that was the one.
To do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's crazy. It's always funny, and we talk about it a lot too. It's just like there's always it seems like a certain way that golf brings people together and puts these storylines together. And I don't think it's just golf. I think it's a lot of sport in general.
Right.
But it makes for these such great storylines of whether it's, you know, in the small picture, like in our lives, or in the bigger picture on the PGA Tour, there always seems to be some sort of chemistry between someone who knows someone that just happens to have a story between the two, and can kind of trace it back to a really feel good story. So that's a funny little insight to your experience with your brother in college.
Yeah.
So like going back and touching a little bit on you had it pretty easy with your brother already being in college, but maybe what would be some advice for kids that are, you know, just going into the high school golfing, you know, scene? What would you advise those kids to maybe try and do, or like focus on the most when looking to pick a college or to seek out college golf?
Right. Well, so golf is such a unique sport where if you're building you're a high school football player and you're trying to build your tape, you only have those 12 games a year that you can build your resume and your film. Golf, you can play in 200 tournaments a year, and all you're trying to do is build your resume. So I would say like the more reps you can get in and the more rounds of golf that you can play in a competitive environment, there's nothing better like in the middle of summer when you're fine-tuned, where you feel the same teeing it up in a USGA qualifier as, you know, your normal Saturday morning game. If you can get that many reps in that you're just comfortable playing golf and the pressure of tournaments doesn't get to you, like that you're set. You've got, you know, such a leg on everybody else. If they're all nervous and you're not, like you're doing just fine. So I would say the more reps and the more tournaments that you can play to like build a resume to get coaches excited, that I would definitely encourage that for high school golfers.
Absolutely. I think, and maybe Lo can touch on it too, but the way golf separates itself from like the football or something like that, where you're making tapes, is, you know, your number's your number. So you go out there and shoot 75, 74. I mean, it's not like, well, I missed this block, but I still shot 74. It's like your number's your number, and that's what
your number's your number. Yeah.
You know, to go off of that, if I were to add any advice to high schoolers or up-and-coming college players, I would say start exposing yourself to professional golf tournaments. The sooner the better. If you have aspirations of a future beyond college, and even to benefit your college career, start playing Monday qualifiers for Korn Ferry events, because the score for those or any other, you know, PGA event you may qualify into, you could shoot 4 under or 7 under. But the point of doing that is to get exposure to going low. In college, regardless of the division you play in, coaches are typically happy with you shooting somewhere around even or 1 or 2 under. I mean, over and over again at Liberty, we were told, everyone go out, shoot even, 1 or 2 under, and we're going to be in a great spot at the end of the day. And that's all I'm expecting of you. But if you advance past that, you go out and you shoot 2 under in a Monday qualifier to get in a Korn Ferry or a pro event, you just missed that cut by 6 shots. And you're, and you're leaving to like, dang, I played good today. I shot 69. missed it by 6 or 8 shots. So my advice would be start playing pro events. Don't be scared. Playing as an amateur, your entry fees are much cheaper, $150, $200, maybe not much more than that. Fortunately, my dad exposed me to that at a very young age, so I have a lot of experience to draw on from that. And my biggest advice would just be go and expose yourself to as much golf as you can. If you can play 200 events, play 200. If not, do what you can do.
Seek out the best competition at the end of the day. That's the only way you're going to get better. No, I love that. And I think the biggest thing for kids like going down that avenue is both of, I think, a little combination of what you both said is just the repetition. Tournament golf is just another beast. Whether it's like you said, the Saturday morning with your guys at your local club is nothing ever compared to standing in the first tee, hearing your name announced, and knowing that you're between 2 tee markers that you've never seen before. Or even if you have seen, your local state event tee markers before, it's just a completely different scene. So any juniors out there wanting to pick it up, just get in tournament golf as soon as possible and get those reps in. So now, like, transitioning from that high school to your freshman year where your brother was your captain and everything, what was your overall experience at Ohio University like? Did you see a lot of Ohio State during that time there?
Yeah, it's so different when you go from, and I'm from a really small town, you go from, you're playing in your backyard, you're comfortable, you're starting to, kind of beat most of the guys like in your little area, the club, you feel like you're going to go out and shoot eat event every time. Mm-hmm. And then you show up to college and you're probably going to be one of the worst players that's showing up, right? And they've got it all figured out where they know how the workouts work, they know how the classes work. So where you're like, you want to play good golf, but it's like you also have these other things to focus on. So you go from being top dog as a senior and things are going really smooth to I have to do a back squat for the first time in my life. And I'm like, I'm 115 pounds. Like, I clearly don't squat. Like, why am I next to this linebacker that ate 3 of me for lunch? So it just gets a whole lot more serious. And I would say it hits the confidence just a little bit when you show up and you go from being big man on campus as you are in a high school setting because there's 50 kids in your class to, no one knows your name on a given campus, so that's pretty, it's an interesting feeling when you're trying to tee it up now. You're like, I'm missing class. I can't feel my legs because I squatted 95 pounds today. So it's, the transition is definitely tough. I would say definitely tough.
Yeah, and I know I can speak from that. I went into college being soaking wet at like 125 pounds. So, I mean, it was kind of the same deal. And even on the D3 level of just, you show up and there's a regimen of workout. And it's like, God, all I did before was run. Maybe. Yeah. Like right. That's even a stretch. So yeah. It's a completely new setting. And you're lucky enough if you have someone that's a familiar face on campus to kind of, play off of. And, but if you don't, man, it can be a brutal awakening and a quick realization that, oh boy, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, life hits you quick, huh? Jeez. Yeah,
turns boys into men. There's no doubt about that.
Definitely a lot faster once you step on the course or even on the field in a way. I mean, I don't know how it is for golf, but when I was at Marywood, man, I came in probably about 145 pounds and immediately started getting pushed around. So I had to basically just go right to the gym immediately and just try and put on as much muscle mass as I possibly can and eat because it's just a different level once you step up.
Right. Yeah. And golf, it's like you show up and these kids are a little taller than you. They've eaten a little bit more than you. And it translates so directly where it's like that guy's hitting a 7-iron 15 yards past me. Like I got to do something. Right. And then it's like, okay, we got to work out. We got to put on 25 pounds. Like contact has to get better. Like you show up and then you obviously get better because you're competing against these guys. Now it's, you may have 2 guys on your high school team that are decent golfers. Now it's like, oh man, I just played really well and I got smoked by everyone on the team. So like just to be able to play up to that, like you get better from surrounding yourself with those good players. So that's a big upside to playing at, a decent score. Those guys are okay. They're good golfers.
You end up playing with 20-year-olds at the time too.
Yeah, exactly.
You're coming in, you hit the adult level, but not really. You're still a kid, and then you come up, and then you got kids in their 20s, 21, maybe even 22. and you're like, shit. Well, oh boy, these are men.
Yeah.
My first like shot when I qualified for my first like my first tournament, I everyone else must have been sick because I qualified for my first one, and I remember teeing it up on this like short par 4, and I hit a 3-wood off the tee, but it was women's flex. Like I'm a scrawny guy, right? I'm hitting this women's flex. It was a Big Bertha gem. It literally had the champagne colored top to it. And I used to beat this thing, I'd hit little like stingers, but like I pulled out this 3-wood gem and these other kids literally laughed at me. And like, I could still hit it like 250, right? I could hit this 3-wood pretty good, but it was a women's flex 3-wood. And these other kids literally laughed at me at the first tee box. I'm like, maybe we should start swinging a little harder here, huh?
Just pump that swing speed up a little bit.
Yeah,
huh?
Exactly. Yeah. So
well, now, I'm following some of these colleges, and you see them. There's guys in the gym, and they're taking chains, chain-looking things, and just taking that downswing and just getting that, hip action and all that firing. And just, geez, because I even watched the NCAA stuff when they come in on the Golf Channel, and those guys are swinging so fast. It's just
so fast,
so insane. I'm like, how? It just blows my mind how elevated their games are from that, just going from high school to college, or even from college.
Sure.
Well, I know even like some of the technology on what we're getting into even college programs now with like TrackMan's huge. We talked about that last episodes, but like also just these completely golf driven or golf only like athletic trainers now. Like it used to be like you used to have an athletic trainer that would just work with, a couple programs and just tie golf into it. But now like you're seeing programs have a specific golf trainer, and that just does leaps and bounds when you can get 12 guys or however many's on a team with just one guy on one solid mission. That just, to me, from when I was in school, has completely changed, and you're seeing it with like the upped level of play and athleticism in golf in general in college right now.
Yeah, and it's just starting to, like, the whole technology is changing everything. Where you've got TrackMan, there's no winter break anymore because you can always be in a simulator. And yeah, the whole workout thing, like golf is no longer that John Daly sport. You don't see those guys out there anymore. Like, I don't know if I should give Tiger credit or blame him, because he's now the reason that we have to go hit the gym, because, all the Dustins of the world now like looked up to him, and he obviously looks different than anyone else. So it's like that adds a nice little aspect to golf that requires boys like us to go at least do a couple bicep curls from time to time.
Keep some tone in there, right? I've accepted the fact I'm never going to be a Brooks Koepka, but man, I guess I got to at least keep some sort of muscle mass to me.
Yeah, somewhere between Brooks and Patrick is probably what you're shooting for, huh?
I definitely don't want to be that dumpy lumpy.
Wow.
Oh boy, yeah.
So when I take an internship my junior year of college, and I work for this company called Perry Ellis, and they make clothing for like Jack Nicklaus or Grand Slam, or they made Callaway too. So I worked on the apparel side with them for a summer, and we did their clothing of what they were going to wear for majors. So this is Patrick Reed 2015, and I had an assignment. This is an actual assignment that I was given, was to go find Patrick Reed a pair of pants. And this is I'm not kidding, right? This was my job that day as an intern, was to find Patrick Reed a pair of pants, because he wanted a pair of black pants. And he is, at the time, he was 40-30 was his pant measurement. And yeah, I wish everyone on the podcast could see the boys' faces right now, because it's but the guy.
We have a YouTube channel. You can check it out.
The guy moves it, right? But it was me as like a 20-year-old kid trying to talk to like the seamstresses that only spoke Spanish to try and like get them to tell what Patrick Reed's pant size is, because they don't make it, right? And the guy was allegedly a top 5 player in the world at the time. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
That's crazy.
That's absurd. And I mean, it's always funny, because I feel like over the last couple of years, he has lost a little bit of weight. Yeah, I've went to a couple majors in person, and he hasn't looked like massive, but I didn't see him back in like 2014, 2015, whatever that was. So he could have been, and I think that's where he got a little bit of reputation for having a little bit of mass on him.
Did you call him the Dumpy Lumpy?
I did, yeah.
Did you guys hear what John Daly said, or did you read his quote? When asked about fitness, he said, you see all these skinny guys, but guess what? You can't pull fat.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, that's clever.
Yeah, it's very clever. Now,
I mean,
Andrew, I'd love to get back into a little bit. You've had some really interesting internships as far as the golf side of things go. You talked a little bit about your time spent in 2015. You also spent a little bit of time, from what we talked about earlier, with the PGA of America. And I'd love to hear about, kind of that side of things and what your time was like with them.
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to work in the golf industry. So it was whatever I could do to just contribute somewhere. And it's such a small community that you meet somebody's going to know somebody that's going to, you're going to, you got to build that network in the golf industry, because somebody will know somebody that is headed in the direction that you want to go. So anything I can get my hands on. So I started working at, I did like part-time with Callaway. I was an intern with PGA of America. And then when I was 21, I landed the coolest internship I'll ever do. And I worked operations at Chambers Bay for the 2015 US Open.
Wow.
It was wild. I'm actually on the like Rolex commercial where Jordan Spieth's like making us putt. Like I'm in a stupid pink polo in the background if you look for me. But that was the tournament where it happened so fast live, where Dustin Johnson 3-putted on 18 to have Jordan Spieth beat him by a shot. And then he got criticized because he didn't come out to accept his second place medal.
Right.
But Dustin Johnson doesn't want a second place medal. He was in the private jet at that point.
Especially when you're walking up 18 saying, all right, lag one up there, tap it in, hand me this trophy. Like a 3-putt, I don't think, even as he stepped on that green, was in his thought process.
No.
As it should be in none of golfers' thought process. But
no.
Yeah, it was shocking to say the least.
It happened so darn fast. So we work our tails off for probably 4 months we did operations. So we built grandstands, roads. We literally, the USGA, I mean, you guys, I'm sure, in these qualifiers, you're paying $200 and everyone builds this pot. We had a road that we built Saturday night of the championship. So we had all this preparation, and they're like, yeah, we should probably have this road paved because people are clearly walking on it. So we paved a road for one day. They're like the USGA, it's just they want to put on the best championship possible, and they do. You guys have been to the tournaments; they're awesome.
Yeah.
But they've got some money to spend over there at the USGA because all the qualifiers that are fairly expensive to get into. But pretty wild. That was so we thought we ran a decent tournament because I was there, we were watching it, we built everything. Hundreds of thousands of people show up, and then Joe Buck puts on his headset for the first time, and Fox Sports covers their first ever USGA event, and you turn it on, and you're like, Joe, what are you doing? If you were at the course, it was a really good championship, but it was my guy Joe Buck. Now I'm learning to love him, but he was god awful when he started doing golf commentating.
It was unfortunate because it was such a serene setting out there at Chambers Bay, and one of a kind, never before seen kind of venue for a US Open. And to have Fox go through growing pains at that event, at that awesome of a course, sucked.
It was brutal. And there it was going so well, it was really smooth. And then you turn it on the television, this is just not what we've built. Tighten it up, Joe. Can we get some shot tracers, please? Yeah, it was interesting. So it went pretty well, but that was pretty cool to build. You work for 4 months. There's guys that are there for 2 years for 4 days of golf. And it's pretty wild. We got lucky that we didn't have to do a 5th day because Dustin Johnson luckily gave Jordan Spieth the tournament there at the end. But that was pretty cool to be out in Seattle working for, it's the US Open. It's the second greatest sporting event of the year in my opinion. So pretty cool to be a part of something like that.
No, that's awesome. And I think, we as a golf media and being in the golf side of things, as long as I think we all have, the US Open is the mecca of the summer tournament golf in the United States, behind maybe the Masters, and that's about it. But
Yeah.
I mean, to have that event, I think we all sit down and set aside everything for that weekend to watch it. So to be a part of that and to see kind of the guts of it all come together, it had to be a pretty sweet experience. Now, you did mention, them building that road, which is just mind blowing to me that, the USGA has that kind of pull over local clubs like that. But what would be another thing that, like, through the entire process of Chambers Bay, that people just wouldn't expect or wouldn't think that the USGA has control over, that they're really pulling on?
So if you've been to any of those sporting events, the structure that's built at a golf course, so you go to a hockey arena, the next day the hockey arena looks exactly the same. So if you go to a golf event, you're going to have the clubhouse, but that is such a small part. Like you're going to go to a golf tournament, you're probably not going to go into the actual clubhouse. You're going to go into the pavilion that they've built. So we built an actual city for practice rounds as well. But, you build this whole city where you're building actual structure. And then come Monday morning, you show up and literally they gave us everyone a sledgehammer and said, tear it down, right? Like, because you're not going to have another championship there for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So everything has to be left the way it was created. And there's just no structure around any of those golf holes. So you build it up, and it takes you, months and years to build all the structure of, concessions and things like that, and then show up on Monday and it's got to all be gone because they've got tee times that they've got to fulfill, in a week. So it's you put so much love into making such an awesome event, and then you just tear it all down the next day, and it's like it never happened. So that was pretty wild to me, because you get used to, like, oh, this is where I go in to have lunch, and then in 2 days the building doesn't exist; it's gone. So that's interesting, because you have to build every aspect of it, because all that's there is the golf course. So that was definitely surprising as a golf fan before I got into it, to see how they do that.
And that's a lot of material to put that stuff together too. Because I remember going to the Barclays when they had it at Plainfield Country Club up in Edison, New Jersey, and I remember just walking when they had the the patrons come in. Where we entered, it wasn't like you said, you're not entering right at the clubhouse, you're entering somewhere else, along the course, and you walk over these built bridges basically. I mean, we walked in, handed our ticket, walked through this bridge type thing, and here we go, and it's massive, and like you said, it's like a little city. You have your bathrooms, your concessions, your pro shop for the patrons, and then next thing you come down, you're walking by, and I'm by the 9th hole. You're not walking in this like you're going to your normal practice round, or your local muni. You pull up to the parking lot, you see the clubhouse, and you go to hole 1 or the driving range. You're just thrown into wherever the course is. Yeah, so it's a lot. It's a lot of material that definitely goes up, even like the grandstands and all that. So,
and I can speak on that too a little bit. It's funny. My sophomore and junior year, we took a team trip out to San Diego and got to play Torrey Pines. And spring break was just after. Well, it was about a couple weeks after they had the Farmers Insurance there. So they were in the process of tearing everything down. Now, this was probably still 2 or 3 weeks after they had the major event. And there was still scaffolding up. There was still half of grandstands up on like some long spans of longer par 5 holes. And that was my first, in-person experience with it. I was like, wow, there's a lot more that just goes into these events than just the golf course and just the players. Like there's like you said, cities built around pretty much. And it's amazing to see the background of everything that ties into just one PGA Tour or major event. It's truly, truly something to, like, if you're ever get a chance to be a part of it, definitely see it, because it's awesome.
Yeah, there's just a different feel. Even I would say like going to a major compared to a PGA tournament. Like, one, you realize how good these guys are, but two, there's just this. I couldn't, if you told me to go tee it up, and there's always this discussion around the U.S. Open, like, oh, what would you shoot? I wouldn't shoot anything because I wouldn't be able to hold the club because I'd be shaking the whole time, right? So you like really get an appreciation for like how good these guys are when you've got, you know, we had days where we almost had a quarter of them. The course was really expansive, but we'd have days where you almost had 250,000 people there. It's like, I'm not going to be able to pull back a putter at that point. There's no way, you know?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I played one time so I was telling you, I hit it okay. You know, I'm probably 103 mile an hour head speed with the driver. It's okay. I'm probably 270 with the driver, right? And I played one round of golf with Corey Connors, who's now on the PGA Tour, and he's been pretty good. And I had a par 3 where I hit driver, 3-wood, 7-iron. And I literally watched this guy hit driver 9-iron. And you're like, this guy is just clearly a different human being, right? Like, I really like this sport, but I'm not playing the same sport that guy's playing, right? Like, he's got something different than what I have. And it's like, you go to one of those events and you're like, this guy is just, I'm not on this guy's level, you know? It's pretty wild to see it in person when you actually get to.
Something we had said on our yeah, that's it. Look, you got it. I was gonna say something we had said on our podcast an episode ago was they're just playing chess. We're playing checkers. Like, it's just you're on the same field but completely different rules and standards, and they're a step above the rest, and it's pretty obvious when you get to these major events.
Yeah.
Talking about a step above the rest, being from Ohio and going to Ohio University. Did you ever cross paths with Jack Nicklaus since he graduated from OSU?
He played, yes. So his first ever time he played with Arnold Palmer was on our college golf course. So, you know, like there would be it's like they call it Jack Nicklaus Day, where he would come on, him and Arnie would come like shake hands on the first tee box. Never played with him or anything like that, but that guy is in the state of Ohio. That guy is an absolute legend. Mm-hmm. There's a plaque at Scioto Country Club in Columbus where it just says like, this is where Jack Nicklaus's first golf shot ever happened. And like, how cool is that, right? Like, the guy he's unreal, right? Like, he helped build this sport that we love. And that's where he took his first shot. You know, like, think of the other millions of shots that came after that, but that was the first one. Like, in the state of Ohio, he is the guy. I had a teammate that went to the high school there in Scioto, and their mascot is the Golden Bears. And like, you know, you've done pretty well. Wow. if your nickname is now the high school, you know, like,
wow.
You know, right? Like, that's a point as an athlete that you want to get to, but like, that's the school. It's like the Scioto Golden Bears because of him.
And if you think about it, really, there's not too many other sports that have that kind of guy with that much influence. I mean, you look at basketball and Michael Jordan, man, I can't even think, maybe like soccer and Messi. I don't know. I mean, he's on a worldwide level, but so is Jack in many, many different ways. So there's not too many other people that have transcended a sport like he has, and just completely, other than Arnold Palmer, or along with Arnold Palmer, I should say, kind of brought the game to the world with everything on right as the TV was coming of age. So, I mean, he's like you said, he's an absolute legend in Ohio, and we had to ask your
he's
prowess.
the man too. Yeah, I think I've probably maybe shook his hands like 2 or 3 times, but like, it's one of those hands where you don't want to like wash it for a couple days because that got something special, you know, like that he's a legend. He is. There's nothing about it.
Did you play golf right after shaking his hand? Because I feel like there's a little magic left in that, right?
There's got to be something there. Yeah, no, there's got to be something, right? You have to get better by just being around that, right? Like, it's just osmosis. Like, you take it in.
If you don't get better around Jack Nicklaus, you might just want to hang up the clubs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that guy's special, man.
I mean, they even have he has his own museum in Columbus.
Oh yeah.
And I was fortunate. My brother lives out there currently, so we went to go visit him one Easter, and he was doing some band stuff. And you know, my dad and I was like, "Hey, there's the Jack Nicklaus Museum. You wanna go?" Yeah. So we went there, and you have this huge, pretty decent sized museum just for him, and you just see all his accolades and all his jackets, all the coins and everything that the memorabilia that they get when playing, it
Right.
was a lot. And all the clubs that he had, it was cool to see as you progressed through his year.
It's something like that too with something else that's more of like I don't know if it's a shrine or more of a museum like that too, but up in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, Arnold Palmer's old like workshop pretty much, which they've done up into his museum, is something, a true sight to see for any big golf fan out there. I highly recommend doing both trips, really, if you can see them both, to see just kind of the histories past of the game and where it's come from and the clubs they started out with, and how far technology's come, not only in club making, but in the shoes they wore, and from the metal spikes up to now the soft spikes and even spikeless shoes. I mean, it's just a true testament of time to see what those guys had to make this game legendary. And
Right.
Both areas are a sight to see, which everyone should go and see. But getting a little bit, I guess, into that like transition from time of the game and the equipment they used back in the day, from the old wooden heads to now we have these 460cc max drivers and everything. Let's get into a little bit of what you see from the Callaway side of things. And do you continue to do demos even though you're in the position you're at Callaway?
Sure. Yeah. So we do quite a bit of them. Everyone should get fit for golf clubs. So it seems like, even the good player, like, I think you would be surprised if you can just spend, you may think, yeah, this is the iron I play and this is the shaft I like and this is the length I like, but it's probably just because you've done that for so long. It's you really like the Pro V1 because you've just always played the Pro V1. So for anyone that, I think fitting is sometimes underutilized for good players, because it's like, well, go spend 15 minutes on a TrackMan and see that maybe that 85-gram shaft for you isn't right, or the guy that thinks he should be swinging an X-Flex. Like, give me a couple swings on a TrackMan. Like, let's prove that that's right for you, because that's all it takes. It's, well, if you have a TrackMan, like, spend some time on that or get fit. And like, it's crazy to me that like I played stock standard clubs, in college, and then I get fit once I get out of college. I'm like, wow, like, game would have been a whole lot easier if you had just given me this half-inch over and a degree up, iron. Like, it just adds to the experience of it so much. So I'm a big advocate of getting fit, and all the pros get fit too. It's not like your local pro, he's getting fit for clubs. That's an extra leg up that he has on the average guy, but you got to get fit for golf clubs.
At what point? That's a question. At what point would you say is the right time to do it? Because when I first started playing, I didn't get fit for golf clubs until probably my sophomore or junior year of high school, when I could actually, be in a position where my parents could afford to get me some.
Right.
But I started out playing with as stock as it could be from, 1975. So at what point
Right.
is the right point to go and invest?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, because the dollar wise, it's going to be, it's there. Last year, most of us manufacturers had drivers that were $500. The average set of irons last year was like $1,200. It was just really expensive. So it's going to be like, what is the value of it to that person? Of can they afford $1,200? And then it's like, well, $1,200 gets you nowhere, because you still got to go pay your greens fee on Monday when you want to tee it up. So you got to know the value of it, and it's got to be like, if I fit somebody for a driver and they bring me their driver and mine goes 5 yards further, that's not worth it to that person for $500. It might be for the guy that, has more money than he knows what to do with. But I think you'd be shocked the amount of guys that can pick up 15 yards with a proper fitting. In which case, like, yeah, you can justify $500 on a brand new driver if you can hit it 15 yards further. And that is very, very, very reasonable to happen for a golfer if you get a good fitting.
Absolutely. And I think to go back to even what you said about pros getting fit, I think they get fit consistently too. That's another thing that I think people don't realize is, like, once you get fit once, a year or two down the road, especially if you're continuing to work out or continuing to do other kinds of activities, or maybe even just getting a little bit more flexibility, numbers change. And
right.
They change drastically sometimes. So like getting fit once and then saying, oh, but I was fit 2 years ago and I don't need to be fit again. But now you're hitting a 20-yard slice and can't figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
people need to realize that maybe going back just to get a little checkup is kind of like going back to the doctor. You could go back for a physical.
You know, at our headquarters, you've got the guys like called the pro tour team, and they're the guys that are making the clubs. And there's usually every player usually has some sort of club that's being built in any given week, right? So they're not making these changes, but like they're putting in new wedges every couple of weeks, or they're tinkering with a new shaft, or for them it's a driver. They can have 12 of the heads are the same thing, so they'll just keep swapping out heads. But those guys they change a decent amount. Irons stay fairly consistent where they won't switch out their irons that often, but to have Xander changing his wedges every 2 weeks, like it's realistic. They have that ability. So it's like, yeah, you should probably take out your, SM2 that you've had in your bag for 12 years, try something different out,
It's unbelievable. They do switch. It's crazy the rate they go through wedges. And it really is just sheer volume of, balls that, the guys are hitting every week. And it does make a huge difference in revolutions of spin. I even see it in my clubs. I went out and hit 6 baskets of balls today, and I'm sure I probably lost 100 or 2 revs of spin on my wedges just doing that. So putting the money into, specific clubs and talking about that from a fitting perspective. If someone really wants to see a major change in their game or wants to see the most benefit, what club would you say is the most important to have fitted right out of the gate?
Ooh, that's a great question. If you want to break it down like analytically, the number one thing to me would be a putter fitting.
Yep.
And you guys are all passionate golfers. Who's gotten fit for a putter before, right? It doesn't really happen. You go into the store, you look at it, you pick it up, you roll it a couple times, and you're like, oh, this feels pretty good to me. And if you make a couple putts, it probably stays in the bag. But there's the science behind a putter fitting can go so far. And it's such a very driver, you're talking about miles an hour, where when I'm doing a putter fitting, you're talking millimeters. It's how much does the face open and close? Where do you consistently strike it on the face? So putter fittings, they're not very common, but highly recommend if you can find a good enough pro that can give you a putter fitting. Goes a really, really long way. Yeah.
I think it's great. And the first time I ever even heard about a putter fitting was actually from Isaiah. And he went down to a local shop and was like, man, he's like, they did me right. And I was doing, everything I had was wrong pretty much, like from the setup to the style of putter to, what my stroke, and everything was just off. And he's like, I never would have known if I wouldn't have gotten it looked at. And I was like, man, maybe I should check that out. Sounds like I really need to check that out because, it's something you never think about. And it's like you said, especially from a putter side of things, they're one of the cheaper things to grab usually, other than like a $500 driver or a huge set of irons. Like they're the most indispensable club where you can pick up 1 or 2 putters and, all right, well, I made 3 or 4. That's the one I'll rock today. And
right, exactly.
It's like you don't look any farther into that than just the face value of it. And there's a lot that goes into putter design and the way they're intended to be swung that people just don't think about on a daily basis.
Exactly. Well, it's so easy to walk on the range, and we've all done it where you're like, oh, there's all these new clubs. Where's the driver at? Like that's all you want is like, well, give me the Tour AD and give me that driver because I want to hit it 30 times. Like you're not thinking about the putter, the more important thing. It's just like, give me that $900 driver and let me see how far I get at this thing. So it's just not as glamorous.
No, it's let me see the smoke pretty much. Like, let me see how far a ball can possibly fly. And that's what 99% of anyone I feel like going to just a generic club fitting love to see is just watching the ball fly farther than what they have in their bag.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not how many shots can I shave here. It's can I hit it, 330. It's like, no, you can't hit it 330, but go roll the putter a couple times.
Maybe this is and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dalton, but
take it, man.
For Odyssey putters, off the top of your head, do you know which model is going to produce the most top spin for a player? Because the putter is most important, top spin is key to getting that ball rolling and staying on track. Which model do you think is, probably the most beneficial for that?
So, interesting. So all of them, every model we make, at least in a given year. The last 3 years, our faces have changed a decent amount. But that's going to be mostly coming from your angle. So whether you're really coming down on it, really coming up on it. So all of our faces and the loft of the face is going to be exactly the same. So on say a robot, they're all going to be exactly the same spin because it's the same face and it's the same loft. The bigger thing you're going to look at is probably how quickly can you get the ball on the ground, and that's going to be, can I consistently strike this thing in the center of the face? So that would be, to me, would be looking at like toe hang is probably the most important thing. It's how, the easiest example is Phil Mickelson. Like Phil Mickelson uses a number 9, and if you took his number 9 putter and balanced it on your finger, you would see that the face would go directly down because Phil takes it directly inside and then he whips this thing around. Where if you take something like a 2-ball putter, it's designed for somebody more to like take it straight back and straight through. So I would say you'd be looking more at like your contact, opposed to, if you have a straight back, straight through stroke and someone has a number 9, it's probably not going to spin very well because it's going to pop right in the air because he's probably not, that putter's not for him. So that would be more of what you'd be looking at, is the head design of how can you consistently strike this so it doesn't pop up and skid, because they're all going to, on a robot, produce the same amount of spin.
The takeaway is find the putter head that's most visually appealing to you, and next step from there would be try to find one that falls within certain toe hang degrees parameters.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So depending on your stroke, one thing too that's really important now that I've started to focus on with putters is how they align it. So a lot of people have really bad putting strokes, but it's consistently bad, which is all that matters, right? Like, I don't care if you're directly outside, as long as you come back to where you started, you're going to be just fine, right? You've seen so many of those guys, I've played with them and they're so frustrating to play against, where it's a bad stroke, but he makes the same mistake every time and he makes a lot of putts. But one thing that we see a lot is guys really struggle with alignment. So just getting checked for alignment. We've been using we have a laser system that essentially shows you where you're starting the putter at, which helps out a lot. Because a lot of times you are surprised. You're like, I feel like I'm left edge. And you're like, no, you're 2 balls outside right. So that would be something I would definitely say too. Like, the aesthetics will play into that, but making sure it helps you align it correctly. A 2-ball is going to align up much differently than a spider putter, for example. So seeing how it aligns is really important too.
Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier, you said Phil has a number 9, and then you talked into someone else picking up a number 9. I think a lot of our listeners would love to know, is that the same number 9? Like, are they getting the same Odyssey putter stock off a shelf that Phil would be putting in play at his next tournament?
So for the most part, yeah. For that example, yeah. So Phil Mickelson, you could have the same number 9. It's interesting. The older guys have a lot more, I would say, custom clubs than some of the newer guys, like the Xander Schauffele. Like, I don't find his clubs to be very custom, where like Phil knows he's so sensitive. I mean, Phil's an outlier too, because he really likes to tinker. Mm-hmm. So he has a different insert than we would buy, but it's not uncommon for that pro to be playing exactly the same club. It's not coming off the shelf, but it is the same club. It's not like they're making a second driver for that guy. It is the same driver, which I was surprised about too. Like, obviously there's going to be a little bit, the parameters for theirs are a little bit tighter, but it is the same club. That'll be the creme de la creme of that batch of clubs that they made.
Sure. And I think, even your competition gets into it a little bit when you talk about like Scotty Cameron and the Circle T's. I mean, there's specific tour clubs that, they are only making, but it's around a same general design. Right. Like, they're the same tour head in scheme. They're the same, the same kind of milling and stuff. They're just a little bit extra taken care of, pretty much, and figured out.
Those guys get just as excited as we do when you get like a new driver to see them try out a new product. Like, they become kids too, where they want to see what goes further. But yeah, same club is being built. Drivers are extreme because they're $500. The cost of them is really high. So it's really hard as a production level to make them. So they're usually making like a couple different SKUs of it, and that's it. So there's not like this one that's like, oh, this is the $10,000 head because Phil Mickelson likes it this particular way. They're using the same one that we are.
Speaking of driver heads, one of the Callaway driver heads I really liked a lot was the XR16. And from when I got fitted for that, the fitter liked to call it the Boeing Club because it was also designed by Boeing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now I guess it seemed like you kind of like, R&D, and you find different types of technology, and, Boeing's very aerodynamics, they make planes, they're the home of basically planes. You're trying to increase ball speed, you're trying to increase swing speed, try and get that head to move through the air as fast as possible. It seemed like as if that technology with like the bottom of that head would have seemed like you steered away. Is that something we may see in 2020 coming out with like your new products, or is that something that may have, I guess I don't know what goes on your R&D and on the aspect of that, what goes behind the scenes, but is there a reason maybe that has kind of fallen off?
So yeah, so you see these cycles too, and I guess unless you like really are around it, you don't see how they flow. So typically a company will for example, us, like we'll come out with a really fast. So that one XR16, you could swing it really fast. It was really aerodynamic, right? Our 2020 version will be fairly similar, where the main objective is to just have you pick up as much head speed as possible, which hopefully translates to ball speed. So you could take a driver like that, or like an FT9, or like a Big Bertha, or like I would say even like Epic Flash, the driver that was out last year, is more designed to be fine-tuned, where you're giving up speed and aerodynamics of it to fine-tune it. So XR16, like, yeah, you might be hitting your head speed might be 3 miles faster than anything that you can make, but because you're hitting a 5-yard cut, it's not going as far as like an Epic Flash because it's got some adjustable features to it. So, but they'll typically launch one year, and then the next year, so you'll launch a fast head, and then you'll launch a forgiving head, and then you'll launch a fast head, and then you'll launch a forgiving head. So both consumers have the option to hop on whatever club works for them. This will be an easy year because our driver, the head is really fast, so the ball is going to go really far. So when you're on the range, you're like, oh my God, I just picked up so much distance. It's like, well, maybe it's not as forgiving as the club that you may have, but it goes really far, which that's kind of what I look for. I want to hit it further than my buddies. I don't want to hit fairways. I just hit far.
You want to show them TrackMan numbers.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to show them the TrackMan numbers. Exactly.
Yeah.
So typically, they'll launch it where you go fast, forgiving, fast, forgiving.
So big things coming in 2020?
This should be the driver next year is pretty wild. The driver is going to be really, really, really good.
I guess that's all you could say, right?
So we give them, drivers will typically launch at the PGA show at late January, but pros will get them, like our staff pros will get them, guys on tour will get them like maybe mid-December, but your local head pro, if he's on a Callaway staff deal and he has a contract where he has to play Callaway clubs, will get that club early January, a couple weeks before it should come out to the general public. Mm-hmm. And those people are eating it up right now. So that's good signs. We almost had Xander win the first time it was in play, which was pretty good. So fingers crossed that it should be really good.
No, it's always I feel like it's always a good sign when the local guys are picking it up and eating it up. Like, I mean, you tour guys hit it so well. They're fractions of differences sometimes when you're
right
technology, but when you get those local tour pro or head pros that are just loving a new product, that seems, at least from my side of things, to be the sign that a huge market might be in stow for this new
yeah
product.
You got a guy in Maryland, going, and it's 30 degrees outside and he wants to go beat drivers. Like when you get giddy like that, you're like, it's going to be a good product. You're going to get to deliver that to a bunch of other people because you can tell you're genuinely excited about it right now too. So fingers crossed. Should be good.
That's exciting news from Callaway, and I hope all of our listeners can maybe go at least try one and pick one up here in the spring whenever the general public sees it, and hopefully see some good numbers from it.
go get fit, right? Like it takes 20, 30 minutes. Go get some actual numbers that will contribute to you becoming a better golfer because I was reading the other day at Club Champion, like people that get fit at Club Champion, their handicap drops by an average of 6 the next year. And it's just because they've gotten proper club fitting. Like it goes such a long way.
What do you think? What do you think the stereotype is of people that like don't want to go get fit? I guess. What do you think a lot of people might be saying out there? Like, I don't need to go get fit, or is it too expensive, or what's the number one thing holding people back? And what do you have to say to those people to maybe help them make that leap of going and get fit?
It's the same reason that people play Titleist golf balls, right? You play a Titleist golf ball because you've always played a Titleist golf ball. You think that the Titleist golf ball is the best golf ball for you. And it might be. They make a really, really good golf ball, right? Their market share is like 65%, right? So if you're a good golfer, you're probably playing a Titleist. But I can almost guarantee you that you haven't tried the B330. You don't have any data to back it up to say, this is why I played the Pro V1. It's just that's what you've played. So you go to the range, you're like, I'm a half inch over in my irons, or I like a 80 gram stiff shaft that has like a mid torque to it. It's like, that's what you're comfortable with. That's what you've played. That's why guys aren't typically open to go try something new where it's like, well, let's put something else in your hands. Like, give me 18 holes with a TP5 and see how it reacts, where guys just typically know what they like. And that's what they get. We all have that restaurant where you know exactly what you're going to get, but like, you could be so much happier with a Callaway golf ball, but you got to give it a chance. And it might be more than one round for you to get comfortable with it, but you got to go get fit to see, because you've been playing that same putter for 15 years. It may not be for you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Dante can speak on it too a little. He went to that Club Champion route. So I think just at least seeing the opportunity of something new is always worth it. You might not change, but I think in Dante's case, which I think wants to touch on, I think he did change.
Yeah, I definitely did change. I did go get fit. I actually got fit a couple of times. I think, well, the first time I got fit, I immediately saw a difference. You know, you saw the dispersion. Once you found the shaft that fit your swing, you immediately see the dispersion. And I think shaft, to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is one of the key factors to getting fit, besides like the lie angle and the length. Just because that dispersion, I mean, I was all over the radar, all over the map, put myself in maybe a heavier shaft, a better shaft than the stock clubs that I bought off the rack that were then cut down, that got even lighter. My dispersion went from this wide to pretty little. And I was able to, at the time, I started out roughly around an 18 handicap, and then I probably got down to maybe about a 12, and then I was in the C Flight Club Championship, and I used them, and I ended up winning. So, I mean, the numbers speak for itself, and also when you have that club in your hand and you're like, man, this looks really nice, and you see the confidence behind it. To me too, and if it don't look good to your eye, I mean, they look good to me as well. I feel a lot more confident that I'm going to hit that shot and I'm going to make a good swing, and I end up doing that.
Right.
And another thing that I think about people getting fit, I know, is they do get steered away from the cost. It is expensive, but up front, yes, it's expensive, but you're looking more at a long-term investment, because at the end of the day, some of these clubs can last a pretty good long time.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at that aspect, you're investing in your game and you're investing in yourself, because golf is expensive. There are ways to make it on the cheaper end, but if you're investing your time into the game, I believe you should be able to, and if you have the money, to invest that money and invest the time into the equipment you're playing, because I believe it's only going to help you. It's only going to get you better.
Right. Yeah. So the cost aspect too, depending on where you go, you definitely have your tiers. Club Champion is like your nicest club fitting place, and that's probably like $200 towards new golf clubs that you had to pay.
Pretty much, roughly, and then clubs itself.
Yeah, I'd say so. That $200 is gone. That's so. What I would recommend for a guy that like it doesn't cost a fortune, just like as a rep, I know almost every single golf course in Maryland will do at least a fitting day at. So, and that costs nothing, right? You can sign up, go spend 30 minutes with somebody that this is their job is to fit people properly for golf clubs, and see what they want to do and see if they want to tinker with your irons. All of our swings are, they're all different. So whether you need to add a length or change the lie or make a shaft heavier or change the head, there's so many things that go into it, but you can do it for less if you happen to find one of these events. And then we all have them at the same time too. So go hit the Callaway driver, then go hit a TaylorMade driver, go hit a Titleist driver and see what you like and get fit by all of them. What I like to do is if somebody's at an event, I'll say, okay, give me 10 minutes with you. I'm going to build you a driver. And then I want you to carry this driver from vendor to vendor. And if the Cleveland driver happens to go further than the best that I have to give, like that's a good driver. Go get that driver. So I like to kind of just build something, make it perfect for you, and then be like, okay, if you can find something better than this, go for that. Cause I don't want you to spend $500 on something you don't want either. We can do that though, where maybe Cleveland doesn't want to compare, our driver to their driver. There's a price difference, but the fitting days at a golf course are such a good route for you guys to go if you're looking to get fit and keep it at, it costs you nothing until you got to spend the whatever on the particular club.
So now can the public find that? Like, where's the best place for the public to go to seek out these fittings? I think that might be another thing too, if people don't want to go to these club champions and spend that $200, people might have trouble finding this information.
Sure.
So like, where can the general public go to find these, overall fitting places?
Sure.
A lot of different clubs.
Yeah. We spend a bunch of money on trying to market, at least get some sort of flyer into whether it's a Golf Galaxy or whatever course that you're at, or if it's one of those, we call it like a big box store, we'll at least try to get a flyer out. They've got a bunch of mailing lists that they do, but we have a spot on our website where you can go in, type in your zip code, and it'll pop up all the dates that you're at a particular course. So yeah, you may, if you want to get fit in, we'll have 20 in the state of Maryland in February. So maybe there's not gonna be one that close to you, but you're going to save $200 if you drive the 30 minutes to go spend 30 minutes with a pro that's going to charge you nothing to get fit. Golf Galaxy has them all the time. Those types of places. Second Swing, they'll spend, as long as you're buying golf clubs, you can typically get them to do it for no charge. Club Champions, just like you did good by going there. And I'm sure they built you a really expensive set of golf clubs too.
Yeah, it hurt the pockets a little bit.
Yeah, it hurt the pockets a little bit.
But at the same time, it was something I wanted to do, and I saved up for it. I mean, it took me about 2 years to get that money. I just started stashing it away for when I can. I mean, when I started, I was like, this is something I want to pursue which is now an extreme passion of mine. It's going from, like you said, we said this before. Golf, you can play the rest of your life. So, you come off the college stage with the degree or high school or whatever, and, you were playing a different sport at the time, something a little bit more physically demanding or team-esque. What are you going to – it's almost you ask your question to yourself, now what am I going to do?
Right.
What am I going to do on a competitive aspect? Well, a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, well, why don't I get the golf clubs and learn the game of actually how to score rather than going out with my dad maybe once or twice a year,
right,
and just hacking it around. Now this is something I can go do whenever I want. I don't have to rely on a team. I don't have to get a bunch of buddies say, hey, do you want to go, play basketball or football or something? And everybody's schedules are different. Hey, I want to go play. I'm going to go find a range, or I'm going to go find a course, and just pay the money to go play by myself or get paired up with another twosome, threesome, or foursome. So, yeah, right. It took me when I realized that was something I wanted to do, and this was, the hobby that I chose that I was going to pursue, I took that extra money and stashed it away until I was ready to say, hey, I'm going to go get fit for a set of clubs, and it has done me wonders.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's what we hope for. And you got to get excited about it enough. Like the professional that's giving you a fitting has to do a good enough job that you leave there excited to be like, yeah, I want to give them $2,000 for a brand new set of golf clubs because like I just saw in the numbers how great this is going to work out for me. So then you get excited. You're like, well, I got to get on the golf course. Like I can hit it in the simulator. I want to get it out there. I would recommend guys piece their sets together. You know, if you've got, you know, you're okay to spend $300, you know, go spend $400, sell your old driver. But definitely get fit for it and slowly start building it up. There's not a lot of guys that are like, just give me the whole set. Usually a guy comes up to me and says, hey, I want to get fit for wedges today. And you'll start with just doing wedges. So piece them together so it doesn't hurt the pockets as much is definitely what I would recommend.
What would you recommend? I guess starting putter on up or vice versa?
No, I would say it all depends on – I would look in the person's bag first. So a lot of guys have – you know, maybe their irons are 10 years old, but they're okay, right? They've got like, I don't know, DCIs. And you're like, that's an old iron, but that's fine. It all depends on what is our biggest gap there. If their driver is really terrible and I feel like I can present a pretty good driver, I would say I would just look for the biggest gap.
Gotcha.
If they're still using, I don't know, Wilson irons, I'm probably going to look at something like that first, you know?
Yeah. Thought you were going to call me out there. I was waiting for him to say my irons, and then I was going to have to appropriately leave stage left. I mean, I think that's a great point, though. I'm still swinging Mizuno MP32s that are like 2014 irons, and they're great. I actually just ditched my newer Titleist irons for this older iron set because I hit them better. They're more consistent, and they're more reliable. But what I'm spending my money on is getting fit for driver, 3-wood, and like, you know, a driving iron or a hybrid in the set, and kind of checking those 3 clubs every year or two just to make sure they're up to date and I'm getting the best numbers out of them. So it's like once you find, especially, I think we talked about it a little earlier, the irons last you a very long time, and even the pros, you kind of see them sticking to the same type or style of irons for a year or two at times.
Yeah.
You can get away with not having to update your irons as much if you want to put a focus on, all right, let's try out a couple different putters, or let's try out a different couple woods and see which one, you know, works best for me. So I don't think you have to make the jump all at one time if that scares some people out there. And I think, like you said, you can piece it together, and that's the way I think you should do it.
Yeah. The irons too. I mean, the irons are so expensive, but you can usually get, you know, a good bunch of years out of the irons where, like, I may have you upgrading a driver because if you got a driver in 2017, I guarantee you I can find you a driver in 2020 that's better for you.
Yeah, I would agree.
You always have the option to buy irons. You can always buy them head only. And if you have your specs from a fitter, you can easily go ahead and, you know, have them bent or a retrofit for the shafts that you want, or hosel types, you know, whatever you're looking for. There's ways around it to save money.
Right.
That, and one of the best and worst things I've done is learn how to build, because now I just tinker with everything.
Sure.
It's insane.
That is the one downfall. I'll let our listeners know very, very quickly. If you get hooked on this stuff and just really get down the numbers, there's a wormhole to be had there of just never ending. Maybe it can be just a little better. I'm going to switch it. And you can get lost in the numbers very quickly too, but it's a fun path to go down if you really focus in, like golf nerds like us do, on just the overall access to different possibilities within club building and stuff like that.
Well, and the same thing with Isaiah was saying was, you know, you like the head that you're playing with, you know, maybe like your swing changed a little bit, got a little bit more swing speed, go get fit for a new shaft. You don't have to buy outright. If you really love the iron heads that you're playing, maybe say, hey, is it time for a shaft change?
That, and here's a good question for you. A lot of players I've heard say that their driver heads go dead over time. And I've heard from master club fitters that the driver head itself never actually goes dead unless it, you know, cracks or fractures, what have you. But the shaft itself is actually something that'll go dead after repeated, you know, bending and cracking of the graphite fibers if you're swinging a graphite shaft over time. What's your opinion on that, Andrew?
So the biggest thing that's going to affect your distance is going to be the driver head, right? That's physically what's making contact with it. So what happens is you've got your bulgier club, which will dampen, you're swinging at 105 miles an hour. The bulge of it starts to change a little bit, and that's when you start to have issues. So I know in particular so my brother now is he's the manager of the Callaway long drive team. So I just did some fittings with him maybe 2 weeks ago where we were working with a particular long drive player who is very good, that will be coming on our Callaway team next year. And we had to make him 60 different heads that are all the same. They're all the same head. We had to make him 60 because he only gets maybe 50 swings out of it before the bulge shuts down and, the club doesn't work at that point. So
what kind of swing speed are we talking there?
This guy was closing in we had him almost sniffing 230 miles an hour on ball speed. So he was almost 230. So this guy is much better than this guy's. He's a very, very, very good player, but he looks for that sweet spot of between like his 12th swing of the club, between his like 12th and 16th swing are his sweet spot for that head, which is pretty crazy to think about, right? We're putting thousands of swings on these clubs, but our head speed's not that fast. But he likes the 12th through the 16th. That's where he finds that the bulge is perfect for him. The shaft, you don't really see affected that much, and we're probably all switching out our clubs fairly frequently, that I wouldn't be too worried about the shaft fibers cracking. But the bulge, I would say, is going to be pretty important of where the ball actually connects to the club. And that is definitely exemplified the most in those guys that swing that hard and have it exiting that fast. This guy was just, when you're hitting it 430 yards, you can't find a range that's going to work for you, right? So every ball that you hit is the first time you hit it and the last time you hit it, because it's gone. you're not fighting that, right? Yeah.
That's crazy. So I guess our listeners can be on a lookout for some long drive guy swinging a Callaway club or two here in the next year or two, and his swing speed is off the charts.
Probably needs a haircut too. You'll see. It'll be big. It'll be big.
Berkshire.
It'll be big in golf news when it happens.
Well, I can't wait for that to come out. I really appreciate you joining us, man. We've had some really fun. We've covered some good topics today, and I hope we've brought our listeners a good insight as far as how the club fitting industry plays itself in golf. And hopefully, I think anything our listeners can take is just go get fit and at least give it a try. You don't have to buy anything. There's like Andrew said, there's plenty of free ways to go out there and test your equipment and see what's best for you.
Yeah, appreciate you boys having me on. You're doing good work in the golf community. So keep it up, man.
Appreciate that, man. Hey, before we let you go, we always ask our interviewees their highest and lowest competitive rounds, where they were, and kind of a little backstory of each of those rounds and what they remember from them most.
Jeez. So my best competitive round was I was okay in college, but I had this one tournament in college. It was our conference championship, and this is probably my high and my low. This was pretty wild. So I came out and I fired back-to-back 71s, and I was in third place after 36 holes with some good players. Like I was, beating a Corey Connors, right? And you're like, it's so interesting because we all have those rounds where you finish it and you're like, I don't know what just happened. Like you couldn't make a mistake, right? You chip in when you should have not gotten it up and down. It happens to catch the flag stick, or you hit it just thin enough where it happens to get to the hole where you may have been short. So that was, I started off really hot, and it was one of those things where when you're kind of playing to, you're like, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
When's it going to happen? Right. So I had made it through. I was 3 under through. It was a terribly hard golf course, right? I was absolutely grinding, right? So 71 as I was playing lights out, right? And then I come to the 9th hole on the 3rd round, and you're feeling good at this point. Your confidence is up, right? And I have it was 211, and it was pretty much all carry. I probably had to hit it 190, so that was it, right? I'm great. 36 holes, loving life. Golf is an awesome sport, right? I come to the the ninth hole, the third round, and I gotta hit it 190 yards in the air. Shouldn't be a big problem. 4-iron, water, not a big deal. You're fine. You're still under par. Drop it, same exact spot. 4-iron in the water. Okay, this is bad. I'm probably gonna make a number here. 4-iron in the water, right? So it's bad, and I don't know if anyone's ever had this. When you have to open up a new sleeve of golf balls in the fairway because you've just dumped 3 on top of them, right? So and it's also bad when the scorer that's live scoring the event for you has to come up and ask you what you just made. That's a problem, right? So I go from like life is so good to 14, and you're like, how did you just make a 14 on that hole? My father, who was tracking the live scoring at the time, shut down the golf course. He was like, I just couldn't do it anymore. He's like, I saw you make 14. I saw you go from 3 under to 9 over in the span of 10 minutes. He's like, I shut the course down. I just didn't want to be around the game anymore. I was like, how do you think I feel standing on 10 tee box, knowing that, there's no words at that point, right? But like all you can do is peg it in the ground and beat the next one and hope it works out well. But it's crazy how quickly you can go from, things are so good. I love golf. I'm never going to miss another shot in my life to I have to pull out my Sharpie because I have to remark my golf ball because I just lost the 3 that I'd Sharpied before the rounds. So golf, man, fickle game. She's a cruel mistress, but
I tell you
I think
what,
that's why we love her.
I was just going to say that's the beautiful misery of it all is that when it's going great and all ships are sailing, you feel just like you're on top of the world and that you've conquered this, this beast that is the game of golf. And then in one swing of the club, it can completely change the outlook on your round, your day, your week.
Right.
Like it can just, for some reason, this game's got a hold on us, man. And it's nuts.
And that's it. Like there's your life lesson. Like I was, I'm beating a couple top 25 players at the time, and give me 6 minutes and 3 swings. And I'm like, oh man, maybe I'm just not cut out to play this game anymore.
Yeah, definitely a lot of thoughts go through your head when that happens. But I'll tell you what, I don't know if the viewers or you guys as well, but when I have those real low rounds, I can't wait to go out and do it again. And when I have those real high rounds, I can't wait to go back out and prove that was just a little bump in the road, and that's not who I really am when I'm playing the game. Because, I mean, high rounds happen, but that's just how I feel. I don't know about how you guys.
Moral of the story, no matter what, somehow this game gets us back out there quicker than we should or quicker than we deserve in some aspects. So
absolutely.
No, I think that'll just about do us for today, guys. Really appreciate it, Andrew. Really appreciate the time and you giving your insights on on everything surrounding club fitting and your background in the game. We've truly appreciated it, man.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely, guys. And as always, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter @_enjoythewalk. We just dropped a pretty fresh new line of crushed can merchandise for the Waste Management Open. If you guys want to go check that out and sport that, whether you're going to the event or not, we greatly appreciate it. Tell us your thoughts, tag us, let us know what you think, guys. Really appreciate it. And as always, enjoy the walk.
Enjoy the walk.
Take care, guys.
Enjoy the walk. Take it easy.
That's the stuff. One shot at a time.